Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Thanks for joining us on this special edition of Newsmakers. I'm Fred Martino. The pandemic made for a school year unlike any other. So how did students adjust? For Noah Race, that was a personal question. He spent the second half of his senior year at Centennial High School in Las Cruces talking to students from a variety of schools. And thanks to an internship with KRWG Public Media, he's entering New Mexico State University as a documentary filmmaker. Here is Noah's work looking back at a school year during a pandemic.
Tonight, Chinese health officials say the illness, which is a new strain of coronavirus, can be passed from person to person, stoking fears that it could be moving faster than it can be contained.
The mayor has announced 2 more people have tested positive for the virus. Many schools around the world, as you know, have shut down, some for extended periods of time.
Tonight, 12 million students in Japan are out of classes. Schools across the country closed for a month to stop the spread of coronavirus.
Experts say the virus started in the Chinese city of Wuhan, but it is now spreading across Asia.
A Washington state resident fell ill after returning from Wuhan, China.
Heightened states of emergency across the nation as a number of coronavirus cases soars above 3,000.
Dr. Mitchell, thank you. Health officials said today that in New Mexico, hospitals will almost certainly move to what the state calls crisis care mode by the end of the year.
Some breaking news right now. APS just saying right now that school is going to be canceled for 3 weeks starting on Monday.
Of course, not having a senior year, that's always, I've never had a senior year, so I don't know what I'm missing out on. That's how I like to look at it.
People need to talk, and people need that social environment to kind of help them succeed.
You're worried about the health of your family. You're worried about, the jobs and your parents' careers or your grandparents' careers. So primarily I'm the student body president, so I oversee everything that has to do with student government. Moreover, I'm in FFA, I'm in media, I'm the co-anchor. We hosted the National Student Government Conference. That was virtual, and so of course it was challenging. We did stuff like that. State student government was a couple of weeks ago, and that was virtual too. So in terms of resources, virtually there's a lot of things that we could do, but at the end of the day, what kids need is to just have the opportunity to interact with one another. I have seen how kids have that weight on them without social interaction. I'm not going to quote the statistics, but more kids involved in NMAA had died of suicide than the coronavirus.
And it's just kind of hard not seeing everyone that you're used to be seeing, especially I'm a really outgoing person. I like making friends and talking to people, and that's been really hard. I think it's the stress and anxiety of trying to get used to a new lifestyle that has hit people the hardest. And I feel like that's a lot of people.
COVID is a situation that I think, kind of hit everybody out of surprise. And personally, the way COVID has impacted my life is severely limiting the things that I can do, both academically and extracurricularly. I was a fairly active person before, going to school, having a busy schedule. And once COVID hit, it was just kind of like, now what? And, it was rough. I would be lying if I said it was a little easy on my end, but I think it definitely mentally impacted me, just sent my mental health right down. So it's been a tough one.
Kind of rough, you know, trying to make new friends. You go outside during lunch, you see people, and you try to talk with them, but it's really hard to. Emotional tolls on everyone, you know, you can't go out, can't see friends, you're just stuck at home, and it just becomes a mess of staying in your house, because then you don't know what to do.
I feel like everyone, because of the pandemic, has been a lot more kind of lethargic and depressed, and I don't want to use that term too lightly, because there are people who, you know, clinically depressed, and this has been very, very hard for them. I do know of some people who have social anxiety, and this has not made it any better.
So I am a senior this year, and unfortunately we haven't really gotten to have a season so far. We're still hoping we will get one. I've just kind of helped out with events, and I am a club swimmer, so I kind of have that aspect as well. Overall, it's kind of effective just because a lot of the pools have been closed. Swimming and recruiting for colleges, because a lot of kids on our team are going to swim in college. It's been hard kind of getting our times out there and showing colleges what we're doing this year, because obviously meets and stuff have not been able to happen. Well, and a lot of us, we didn't get a junior year meet because it kind of happened right when we were supposed to go off and kind of swim our biggest meet of the season, so that was a little rough. So some of us have times from our sophomore and freshman year that we're just hoping will be good enough to get into the schools we want.
Student athletes, you know, they're really they like to be in the classroom, but they love to be on the field. So I played varsity soccer my freshman year. I left and ended up showing dairy cattle for the rest of high school. But with the delay of fall sports, actually yesterday I went out and practiced with the boys soccer team for the first time. So as for me, it's great because I get to play because I decided to 2 days ago. But I understand that student athletes, you know, are missing out on that.
It's interesting. It's a lot of smart music. It's a little tough. So, you know, a lot of things through Zoom, a lot of times individual practice. Some of us have private lessons teachers that we go through for a little bit more, you know, to keep our playing up. But a lot of smart music in Zoom. You know, you look at situations where, you know, a couple of weeks ago, you know, football and a lot of sports were cleared to go, which is totally cool because, you know, it allows kids to get back into the routine of, you know, being athletic. But, you know, at the same time, it's kind of one of those situations where the arts are being left behind again. And, you know, going forward from this and, you know, finally, you know, in a way being allowed to, you know, resume these in-person events and in-person rehearsals is like a moment where you're like, oh, thank gosh, you know, because it's hard to do anything virtual, but especially doing music and trying to educate kids through music is definitely tough, you know, because you're severely limited on what you can do. And, you know, the music community has suffered a lot from COVID and the effects from it. And, you know, to finally see that we're able to have some sort of in-person practices, even though they may be, you know, relatively well restricted, it's still kind of gratifying, you know, to see that we're able to get back to some type of normalcy. But it is a positive step to see the music community being able to rehearse again, but at the same time, more can be done for us. Still a lot of unknowns, you know, how exactly are we going to teach these essentially two groups of freshmen? Because the freshmen now will be sophomores this fall, and then you have the 8th graders coming up who haven't played since 7th grade, maybe late 6th grade. So there's going to be a lot of trying to find the path that's effective and efficient for the group.
I do concert and marching band for the school. Then I play soccer for Centennial High School. I'm a goalkeeper. Going into high school, I say one of the hardest challenges is finding what you're good at, say, because high school is preparing you for college and everything, and I'm trying to prepare for college or my future, and it's kind of hard because, you know, I'm trying to do my best, A's and B's, striving for A's, seeing what my future can be, and it's kind of hard preparing for it because of this whole pandemic thing. I can't go talk to people, see how it was for them. In the beginning of school year, I was struggling with algebra, biology, language arts, and it was just really difficult. My parents got me tutors, barely helped, but now I've been going back to school, been doing option C. It's been helping me. I talk with my algebra teachers in the morning, and they really help me with it because I'm sick of staying in this house all day. You know, I mean, I love staying home, don't get me wrong. I play with my dogs, hang out with my friends on like games sometimes, but I really do want to go and walk around, see the school. I've only been in the freshman building all the time or in the band room. That's all I've been. And I want to see where all my teachers' classes are and see where they all are and how they are.
Last March, almost exactly a year ago now, we shut down for 2 weeks before spring break, and we thought we were gonna come back right after. We ended up not doing that. We stayed online for the entirety of the rest of that school year. And then we started a little bit later than normal, but this past August, immediately in a hybrid sort of model that kept some of us on campus. Most teachers, all the teachers, I should say, are very good about keeping us distance. We've had certain classes move to bigger rooms and desks are spaced out and things. In the halls, it's kind of hard to monitor. So there are times when we're probably not following the strict 6 feet distance. And it's also pretty difficult because we all know each other very well. And so there's this kind of idea, at least for the students, that like, oh, well, if you have it, then I already have it. Every now and again throughout the year, there had been 1 or 2 cases of someone getting it. And in that case, they would, you know, quarantine. And we would quarantine their grade. So I don't know any names. I'm not allowed to know any names. But there was, I think, one of the 5th grade classes was quarantined for a week or 2 weeks. But then all of a sudden in the upper school, there were multiple teachers and students who had it. So they just shut down the entire school. We went completely online for 2 weeks. I think for most of us, the thought has kind of been, if we do get it, we're young enough and we're healthy enough that it's probably not going to do a ton of damage. One of my good friends who got it, she was affected pretty heavily, but even then, no one was really scared of it.
Am I jealous of the public schools that are going back? I'm jealous of the states that are back to normal in their own ways. I have a lot of friends in Lubbock and in Texas, actually, that are going to school, having prom. So yes, I am jealous of that.
I mean, I think it's really nice. I actually went to Mesilla Valley for a while before I came into high school, and I still know a lot of kids who go there, and they've all appreciated the fact that they're still open. But I do wish that we were back in school and like full time all the time. And I mean, I really do think that's beneficial for them, especially for seniors. Their last year in high school, I feel like they're going to enjoy it that way with the sports and just kind of getting to hang out with their friends for that last year.
I will say though, and this is just a personal opinion, it was a little risky, you know, especially, you know, the last surge of COVID. That's just me. But you know, if they still kept the option of being online and being in person, that's fantastic. Those who chose to go back, perfectly fine. Those who chose to stay online, perfectly fine as well.
It has been really hard not coming to school because, I mean, it's like being homeschooled, honestly, and that's something I never experienced before, because learning online is a completely different thing than learning in a classroom where you can ask questions and kind of get the full explanation you need, because I feel like that sometimes that's hard over a computer screen.
Get it from like an unbiased point of view. and you see like, okay, online learning isn't the most ideal. Some people excel, some people have a hard time. And then there's the people who are like, okay, it's all right. And then you go over to in-person learning and you have to evaluate the risks on that one. You know, like, is it actually safe, you know, to go back with 12, 1,300, 1,400 kids and have those, you know, have every class every single day with all those students? So it's kind of like a weigh the risks type of situation. Public education department released their guidelines. I was like, okay, well, school districts are required to, you know, still continue their virtual learning, but how they do that is subjective to each district. And I think that's a major concern of mine, is how are the online kids and the in-person kids, how is their educational experience going to be matched?
I'm a junior in Centennial High School, actually, and I am the junior class president. And mainly for the coronavirus situation, I am a member of the Student Advisory Council, and we work alongside with LCPS and help along with the students. So the goals necessarily was just to, you know, to help these students achieve the best they can. At least for me, it's to achieve the highest academic levels and to help the high schoolers in particular to reach the academic levels they want to earn and reach. And we actually had a meeting an hour before this interview, and we talked about, you know, what we could do to help students re-enter the schools safely, and what we could do with the participation grades, like, you know, Zoom or in person, and we could talk about the grading policies, and those are all still up for discussions. The diverse opinions are taking place in our district too. Parents, teachers, students, they have all types of opinions on re-entry. So as a member of the SAC and the LCPS, we're trying to accommodate with every student and parents possible to help them get the things they need. So to just give credit, this tutoring service was actually developed and created by Stephen Ewing and Adelaide Elberding from Las Cruces High School. So props to them, and I'm more than grateful to take part of it. And this tutoring service necessarily, we started with the elementary students. We helped them with math and English, you know, from kindergarten to 5th grade. And as more demands were requested through the LCPS, we actually expanded to middle school and high school. So we're teaching thousands of students right now with hundreds of tutors out in the district. I've seen people with depression. That is one of the major health issues that people have faced. And really, people are facing other sorts of mental health issues. Our nurses and counselors are help for these students, and for anyone that needs help, they could reach out to their counselors or nurses. That's also in the campus dashboard in the virtual nurse's office. So anyway, feel free to reach out to them. They're helping 24/7.
I think it's great, and I think the pandemic was a good excuse for it to happen, because it should have already been happening. At the end of the day, I know kids aren't getting the in-person instruction, so they might fall short on certain topics, but there should have been tutoring available for them in the first place.
Some of them are really good in math, and some of them are good in English and history and science, and you can go through NHS and get help from kids who may have already taken those classes, because I think that's beneficial, where if kids have already taken those classes with the teachers you have, they might be able to give you some insight on, okay, well, this is something that the teacher really looks for when you're doing assignments or when you're doing a test and stuff like that. And I think that the student-based tutoring is really helpful for some kids.
You know, you still, regardless of the public health situation, it's still going to be a good amount of students that need educational assistance. And I think it was kind of ignored before COVID because everybody was just living their lives. There wasn't a lot of options for tutoring other than, you know, going in and sitting down with your teacher, which sometimes can be hard. So I think, you know, having a tutor program being established now and also being available well into the future and built upon would be a fantastic option.
Looking at a bright side, I'd say I had more time to work on things I really wanted to endeavor. I had more time to study on my own. I had more time to do activities I really wanted to do, like tennis and other activities.
Written a lot of songs, written a lot of poems, read a lot of books. Honestly, give me time to reflect on the past 17 years, and then, you know, look over that and see, what's the next 17 years going to look like, new chapters and stuff like that. Some other positive things that I'd see is just people helping each other out. Forgiveness for a lot of things that go on in terms of school, outside of school.
Like I said, hanging out with my family has been a major thing for me, and I feel like a lot during the day I'm able to kind of be closer to them.
So being more involved with family and things of that nature. I got to go home to Texas for a longer period of time than I normally would have been able to.
It's been really hard to get used to, but I feel like now everyone has done such a good job of working with each other and understanding that this is new for everyone and we're not going to get it right on the first try.
With the whole COVID disruptions and things, it disrupted a lot of ACT and SAT testing. And, the benefit from COVID for me was the cancellation from a lot of universities that didn't require ACT or SAT scores. So I got really lucky because my scores are not that good. So that was kind of in a way, kind of like a blessing in disguise.
Thank the teachers that, are back in school, regardless of if they have the vaccine or not, because their purpose in life is to be with students and mentor students and teach students. The school board members said that teachers didn't sign up to die, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. The teachers that are back, signed up because their calling is to help students, and I appreciate them.
News that Pfizer is shipping out the first doses of the coronavirus vaccine as we speak, with hopes that this is the beginning of the end.
Today, New Mexico is closest to herd immunity. More than a quarter of the adult population here has been fully vaccinated, outperforming the rest of the country.
Dr. Ryan Stewart with the Public Education Department expects every school in the state to fully reopen by April 5th.
For the first time in 2 years, hundreds of Las Cruces students walked across the stage to graduate.
And the producer of our documentary, Noah Race, joins me now in studio. Noah, to start with, great job on that project.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, obviously this had personal meaning to you. This was the last few months of your high school career. What was it like shooting this documentary at that pivotal time in your life?
Yeah, it was kind of the perfect opportunity to film that project. I knew a lot of people that were struggling in different ways than I was. Some people missed out on sports, some people missed out on music like I did, and some people missed out on just hanging out with their friends. And I think because I was still in high school and I knew all these people that were struggling, I really got to have a deeper connection to them. And I really got to talk with them more than I think someone else would have been able to.
Obviously, as we heard from some other students in the documentary, it isn't easy to lose part of your senior year. It's a time when you're supposed to be able to do a lot of things, have a lot of good memories. But did it at least make it a little easier that you were able to do this project and launch your college career?
Oh, for sure. I mean, at the beginning of COVID, I was really struggling. My whole identity through high school was being the band kid, and it was going to be being the drum major of the band. And to have that taken away, it was really tough. I was kind of lacking purpose, I guess you could say. And when I got that opportunity to make the documentary, I really grasped onto that. And I was really looking forward to making something and getting better at a new skill that would help me in the future. And I don't know, that was super fun, and I had a great time making the documentary.
Yeah. So tell me what stands out in terms of what you learned doing this project.
Man, I've learned so much from this project. Just from simple editing, I was a very slow editor at the beginning. Towards the end, I started to get a lot better. Shooting B-roll was one thing that I really struggled with, but I really started to understand how much I needed to shoot and what I should shoot, and that was something that just stuck with me, I guess you could say, from the project. And before this documentary, I never did an interview before. So conducting the first interviews, I learned a lot. I think Grayson was my first interview, and we had a great time. And I think from there, I just learned stuff from each interview, and they got better as they went on.
As I told you, this is an amazing achievement. It really is. You were the first intern at KRWG that has been able to actually do a documentary. So you should be very proud of that. I know that you had an opportunity too to shadow some pros from Vice News, because at the time you were filming this documentary, they were filming a mini documentary on how the pandemic affected schools here.
Yeah, for sure. It was a funny way that came about. I just got done with Sarah's interview, and she was talking to the principal at Las Cruces High School, and the principal said, yeah, Vice News is coming into town to shoot a documentary on how COVID has affected kids. And that piqued my interest, so I talked to her. She said that she would reach out to me when they came into town. So a couple of days before they began shooting, she let me know, and I showed right up to Cruces and started working with them. And that was such a fun day. I got to follow them around, got to watch them do interviews, shoot B-roll, do all the normal stuff. And it was just amazing to watch like the pros in work, because they were like a well-oiled machine. Like, it was so much fun. They were super nice. Yeah, I learned so much from them, and it was such a great experience.
And you have a lot more learning to do. You're entering New Mexico State University in journalism. We're happy about that, so we can see more of your work.
For sure, yeah, I look forward to it.
We look forward to it too. Any particular topics that you have an interest in that you want to pursue?
I guess the biggest one I could say right now is government. I'm really into politics and seeing how politicians work with each other and all that stuff. Well, on a more local level, I want to get into more of like a historical documentary, and I was thinking something on maybe the Las Cruces bombings that happened at the churches a couple of years ago. I think that might be something interesting to look more into, because not a lot of people hear about that anymore, and it was a really big story at the time.
Absolutely. I remember it well, being here 13 years. Well, Noah, we're glad that you launched your college career with KRWG and getting to do this project. It was outstanding.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. Noah Race, he is entering NMSU, and we enjoyed having him today, enjoyed having you with us as well. I'm Fred Martino. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.